As 2025 draws to a close, I can't remember the country ever being gloomier. People are getting poorer, more people are becoming unemployed, inflation is proving sticky, and our debt is running completely out of control with a chancellor who doesn't seem to have a clue what she's doing. Worse than that, people are frightened now to walk down the street wearing a watch, wearing jewellery. Oh, and by the way, if you say anything rude on Facebook, you may well get a knock at the door. Well, I've come here today to Greenwich to have a think about what this country used to be, what it represented, and what it can become. Because, of course, Greenwich was here at the very height of Britain's naval power. And that wasn't just about winning the Battle of Trafalgar. It wasn't just about building the biggest empire the world had ever seen.
Right? Listen up. While you were nursing your New Year's hangover and wondering whether your resolution to join the gym would survive past January 2nd, Nigel Farage was standing in Greenwich, staring at Canary Wharf like some sort of political prophet, declaring that Reform UK is Britain's last chance before we all presumably fall into the Thames and drift away into irrelevance. And honestly, the sheer audacity of it all is rather magnificent. The man chose to deliver his New Year's message from the birthplace of Greenwich Mean Time, because apparently when you're Nigel Farage, even your geographical choices need to be symbolic. He is not just making predictions anymore. He is issuing warnings, promises, and what can only be described as a political ultimatum wrapped in a Union Jack and served with a side of cryptocurrency enthusiasm. Quick favor, if you are loving this, hit that subscribe button. Over 94% of viewers have not yet. It is free, takes a second, and means the world to us. Thanks if you did. Now back to the show. So let us set the scene properly, shall we? Picture this. Nigel Farage, the man who has been a thorn in the side of the British establishment longer than most people have had mobile phones, standing near the National Maritime Museum, waxing poetic about Britain's naval glory while simultaneously name-dropping artificial intelligence and digital assets like he is hosting a TED Talk for disgruntled patriots. The location choice alone is peak Farage. Greenwich, the place where time itself is measured. The symbolic weight is so heavy you could probably use it as ballast on one of those historic ships he was banging on about. He is standing there, looking at these magnificent buildings, then pivoting to Canary Wharf's glittering towers, drawing a direct line from Trafalgar to blockchain, and you have got to admire the presentation even if you are skeptically raising an eyebrow at the content. Now, the core of his message is rather straightforward, if not slightly apocalyptic. Reform UK, according to Farage, is not just another political party. Oh no, they are apparently Britain's last chance saloon before we all collectively fall off a cliff of mediocrity, strangled by net zero policies and ignored by politicians who could not tell Bitcoin from a Bakewell tart. He is making predictions with the confidence of a man who has been consistently underestimated and has the election results to prove that underestimating him is a catastrophically bad idea. 175 opinion polls in a row. He claims. 175. That is not a winning streak. That is a statistical relationship status reading. It's complicated for Labour and the Conservatives. But here is where it gets properly interesting. Farage is not just talking about winning elections. Anyone can promise that. Every politician since the dawn of democracy has stood on a soapbox promising electoral victory like it is a free sample at Tesco. No, Farage is talking about fundamentally changing the entire system of government, not tweaking it, not reforming it around the edges. Fundamentally changing everything. That is either the most ambitious political promise since someone decided representative democracy was a good idea, or it is political theatre so grand it makes Shakespeare look like a modest local playwright. Probably both, if we are being honest. Let us talk about those May local elections for a moment, because this is where Farage's prediction gets properly bold. He is saying, quite explicitly, that if reform comes top in May, it puts them way ahead for the general election. Not just competitive. Way ahead. That is the kind of confidence that either comes from internal polling data that would make Keir Starmer wake up in a cold sweat, or from a man who has spent his entire political career being told he could not do things and then doing them anyway just to prove a point. Remember when everyone said UKIP was a fringe party? Remember when Brexit was impossible? Remember when Farage winning a parliamentary seat was about as likely as the king taking up professional wrestling? Right. So perhaps we should pay attention when the man makes predictions, even if they sound bonkers. Now, the Greenwich location choice is doing some seriously heavy lifting in this speech. Farage is standing there, gesturing at history, quite literally using Britain's naval past as a rhetorical launching pad. He is talking about Trafalgar, about empire, about the Royal Navy spending decades and enormous resources driving slavery off the high seas. That last bit is particularly clever, is it not? It is a preemptive strike against anyone who might want to reduce British history to nothing but colonial guilt. He is saying, look, yes, empire, but also look at this bit where we were the good guys. It is historical cherry-picking of the highest order, but it lands a point. Britain was important. Britain was powerful. Britain did things that mattered on the world stage. And the unspoken question hanging in the Greenwich air is, what are we now? Then comes a pivot. The rhetorical turn so sharp you could get whiplash. From naval glory to Canary Wharf. From Trafalgar to cryptocurrency. From wooden ships to AI. And this is where Farage's message gets properly contemporary, because he is not just wallowing in nostalgia. He is saying the future is right there, gleaming in those glass towers, and our current political class is utterly clueless about it. Labour does not understand it. The Conservatives do not understand it. But Reform? Oh, Reform understands it perfectly, apparently. They are the party of digital assets, of AI, of growth technologies. They are the party for the 1 in 7 Britons who own some form of digital asset, whilst the government treats them like they are invisible. Now, whether you believe Reform genuinely understands cryptocurrencies and artificial intelligence better than other parties is rather beside the point, is it not? What matters politically is that Farage has identified a genuine gap. There are millions of people in Britain who are invested in, interested in, or working with technologies that feel utterly disconnected from Westminster's concerns. When Parliament debates crypto, it sounds like your grandmother trying to understand why you need more than one remote control. Farage is positioning Reform as a party that gets it, that speaks the language of the 21st century, whilst Labour and Conservatives are still arguing about 20th century problems using 19th century rhetoric. But then, of course, we need to talk about energy. Because what British political speech will be complete without a dig at net zero? Farage is absolutely insistent that none of this glorious digital future can happen without cheap, abundant energy. And he has got a point, has he not? AI requires massive data centers. Data centers require electricity. Cryptocurrency mining is notoriously energy intensive. If Britain is going to compete in these new industries, we genuinely do need reliable, affordable power. Farage's argument is that net zero policies are fanatical, that they will leave Britain behind whilst other countries race ahead. Now, you can disagree with the characterization, you can argue about the necessity of climate action, but the underlying concern about energy costs and reliability is not exactly fringe. It is a genuine economic question that deserves better than tribal political responses. What is rather fascinating about this entire speech is how Farage is threading multiple needles simultaneously. He is appealing to nostalgia whilst talking about the future. He is being patriotic without being backward-looking. He is criticizing the establishment while standing in one of the most establishment locations in London. He is talking about revolution whilst wearing what one imagines is a very sensible coat. The man is a walking political paradox, and that is precisely why he has been so effective for so long. He speaks to people who feel ignored, dismissed, patronized by the political class, and he does it whilst making them feel like they are part of something important, something historic, something that matters. Now let us address the elephant in the Greenwich room. Is Reform genuinely Britain's last chance? That is quite the claim, is it not? It has apocalyptic overtones. It suggests that if Reform does not succeed, Britain is fundamentally doomed to mediocrity, decline, irrelevance. That is either stirring rhetoric or fear-mongering, depending on your perspective and quite possibly your voting history. But here's the thing. It works. It works because enough people feel like the system is broken, like Labour and the Conservatives are two sides of the same ineffective coin, like nothing ever really changes no matter who is in Downing Street. Farage is offering not just an alternative, but the alternative, the final roll of the dice, the last chance saloon. Vote for us or accept decline. That is powerful messaging, even if it is somewhat melodramatic. The references to hope and change are particularly interesting because those are traditionally progressive buzzwords, are they not? Obama ran on hope and change. Corbyn talked about change. Yet here is Farage, the right-wing insurgent, the Brexit architect, claiming those concepts for reform. He is saying that if you keep voting for the same old parties, nothing changes. That his attack line works because it is fundamentally true. British politics has been remarkably stable, remarkably resistant to genuine transformation. Labour gets in, tinkers around the edges, disappoints people. Conservatives get in, tinker around the edges, disappoint people. Repeat indefinitely. Farage is positioning Reform as a party that breaks the cycle, that offers actual, genuine, fundamental change rather than just rearranging the deck chairs whilst the ship continues its stately progress toward mediocrity. And those local election predictions? 175 polls leading. 10% average lead. If Reform comes top in May, it sets them up for a general election victory. Those are not hedge predictions. Those are not careful, politician-friendly statements with 17 caveats and an escape hatch. Farage is putting his credibility on the line, saying Reform will win, saying they will change everything. That is either political suicide or political genius. And with Farage, it has historically tended to be the latter. The man has an uncanny ability to read the public mood, to position himself on the winning side of arguments before people realize those arguments are happening. So what does this mean for Starmer and Labour? Well, if you are the Prime Minister and you hear Nigel Farage declaring that Reform leads every poll and is coming for your job with the confidence of someone ordering a pint, you are probably not sleeping particularly well. Labour came into government on a wave of anyone but the Conservative sentiment, not exactly a ringing endorsement of their vision. If Reform genuinely is consolidating support, if those poll numbers are real and sustained, if May's local elections go the way Farage predicts, then Labour's comfortable majority starts looking rather less comfortable. Politics is a way of moving faster than anyone expects, and Farage has proven repeatedly that he is very good at accelerating those movements. The positioning of Reform as understanding modern technology whilst the establishment parties are clueless is particularly potent. There are millions of younger voters, tech workers, entrepreneurs, people working in industries that did not exist 20 years ago, who feel completely disconnected from Westminster.